Hey everybody, my name is Russell Lehmann, and I am so grateful to have been awarded the L's for Autism Spectrum Award for 2024. I was diagnosed with autism at age 12. I'm 33 years old now, so when I was diagnosed in the year 2003, and that was after spending 5 weeks in lockdown psychiatric ward for severe OCD, depression, anxiety, phobias, so on and so forth. I struggled since the day I was born, so unfortunately, it took over a decade to get my diagnosis. And then, even after my diagnosis, there wasn't nearly the awareness back in the day as there is today about autism and the complexities of autism and the dual diagnoses of mental health disorders on top of that. And so I was very misunderstood. I was judged based solely on my behavior, taken at face value. Nobody entered my world, right? I was expected to enter this external world, this brutal world that is too much for me often because I am sensitive and I have a delicate nature and I'm a fragile soul, a strong spirit, but a fragile soul. So I get hurt a lot by this world. And as a child, I was expected to take a step outside of my world because autism, the Greek etymology behind the word autism, means a state of self. You know, I have a very rich inner world. I was expected to leave that behind and be part of a brutal world without any accommodations. So my school district didn't accommodate my IEP. We had to take it to the top of the school board. Even then, they wouldn't provide any individualized services, and again, just judged me based solely on my behavior, which, you know, they thought was I didn't want to be part of the school environment. You know, I was that very stereotypical autistic kid in the corner of the classroom with my hood on. I never made eye contact. I had to teach myself to make eye contact. I never spoke to anybody. I was too afraid to speak to anybody outside of my parents. I sucked my thumb until the age of 15. And so, you know, kids would look at me in the classroom like I was some kind of zoo animal, like I was a spectacle. Teachers would, you know, ask me if I can hear them or look me in the eye when I'm talking to you, Russell, or it's, you know, you're not being respectful if you don't answer my questions. I was just so scared. I was very much a prisoner inside of my own body. So unfortunately, even after my diagnosis, it really didn't make things any better. And this led to me dropping out of public school in the 5th grade due to the lack of support, compassion, and accommodations. And I took online classes until the age of 19 when I got my GED. But losing that bridge to society in the form of physical schooling really led me to withdraw from the world. You know, I really became very socially prevalently isolated for the next 15 plus years. I never lived out my teenage years. I never had friends. You know, I never lived out my 20s. I'm only starting to live now. 3 years ago, when I was 30, I moved to Los Angeles, where I'm based now, all by myself, and this is the first time in my entire life that I'm fully independent. And it's very difficult, but it's also very rewarding. And so these past 3 years are the first time I had friends in 2 decades since I was age 12. You know, I'm experiencing so many things that one typically experiences in their teens and 20s. I'm experiencing them all day, you know, every day at age 33 here in LA. So every day here is a crash course. And, you know, I kind of dove into the deep end of the social waters without even really knowing how to swim. So I burn out a lot. You know, I'm expected to function as others see me function previously. But my autism at times, you know, is very fluid. I like to say I'm very high functioning and I'm very low functioning. When I have my meltdowns, it is like unplugging a computer, right? I cannot do much. My capacity to communicate diminishes. You know, I become very overwhelmed. I can't process commands or questions. So don't let this fool you, right? I always say, I might be presenting now, but my autism necessarily isn't. So it's been a very difficult, arduous journey, a very lonely journey. I've been on a detour of sorts, a very unique path that few have the privilege to wander on, right? But the beautiful thing about that is even though it's a steeper path than most and a rockier path than most and one with more obstacles and roadblocks in the way, it's also a more beautiful course in life. And I like to say I'm taking the scenic route. Sometimes I just stop on this unique journey of mine and admire all the beautiful things that I see in life that aren't necessarily beautiful for others, right? I see things in a different way, and that's why I became such a prominent public speaker. Is I'm able to share my unconventional ways of thinking, my perspectives on certain social topics or taboos, kind of deconstruct the narrative of what a normal human is supposed to be like, and And by educating, I can eradicate the stigmas and stereotypes that come with having developmental disabilities and intellectual disabilities and mental health difficulties. So I just want to say thank you again. I wish I could be there in person, but I hope to really collaborate with Els for Autism in the future, because they, I know what it's like to be down and out. I know what it's like to be that teenager that was forgotten by the world. I know what it's like to be at home in your mid-20s, living with your parents, no job, no hope for the future. I had to create my public speaking career with my own two hands. If I didn't create this, I would still be part of the 85% of autistic adults who are unemployed. So I know what it's like to be that ugly duckling, that black sheep, that outcast. And there are far too many people out there that are still those outcasts, forgotten by the world. There are millions of me out there. And for me to be able to have a platform to give those a voice until they become recognized by society, and they too can not only find their voice, but learn how to use their voice and how to have their voice be heard, is a deep passion of mine. So anything I can do in this upcoming year and in the years moving forward for the Els for Autism Foundation, I think it's a very beneficial programs, and these supports are needed, even for people like me, even for people who seem like they have their autism all figured out. I do not. My mind is very complex, and I struggle every single day. Most of the time, the struggle is behind the scenes, though. So I appreciate the recognition because this award validates not only my struggles, but my existence. When you have invisible disabilities, you don't get a lot of validation simply because people can't see your disability. And so it can get lonely, and you can feel like you're putting in all this effort day in and day out just to get by, but nobody ever sees that effort. And so having this award means you all watching this see my effort. And that means a lot, because this life is tough for me. And we all need validation in life. And I think too often people with autism are not given the respect and validation they are due. Because, a friend of mine once said, people with autism have to try twice as hard to get half as much as what others take for granted. So with that, I will say thank you once again. And I just wish I could be there in person, but hopefully this video does a job in conveying how I feel and the appreciation I have for this recognition. Thank you.